Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, lunatics of all ages, I am Alex the Maniac, and welcome to another live night with the Maniac. Like Monday. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to talk about what are we going to talk about tonight? A little bit of metal. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. A little bit of a metal. Give me 1 second here to take the guitar off. Put you list a little bit. We'll put it back on in a little bit, okay? So what we're going to talk about tonight is about my experiences with music. Now, I started getting into music as a young kid. Got into oldies. I loved oldies. Got into... Yeah, just checking to make sure that's on for later. We'll take that aside just for a second. So, I'm going to stand up today. Is that okay with you all? Thanks, guys, who are here in the group with me. I'm glad to have you all here. This is going to be a fun one. So, I got into music at an early age, listening to oldies. I mean golden oldies, not what the oldies are now. I'm talking about the doo-wop and the things like, yes, yeah, the Beatles were okay. Yeah, the Beatles, the Monkees, and, Sha Na Na, and the stuff that was going on in the 50s and 60s and all that stuff was fun stuff. And I really enjoyed listening to that. I was listening to B101 back in the day when I was a little one. And that got me into music a little bit. And then rock. Anything rockish from a very early age had me. Pretty quickly tied right in. And I loved it. And I started writing music. My first songs I wrote when I was in middle school. I want to say fourth grade. I wrote my first stuff. And it kind of had a lot of feel to those oldies, but the rock edge of them. So, I had a song called Rockin' in a Twistin' Tornado, which was all about a tornado coming along and blowing the sides off a school while the band's playing, and it was this whole thing. So that's where I really started getting into it. And I loved music class. It was one of those classes that really made me feel like I wasn't actually in school and I could have fun and enjoy the day. But I found out pretty early on that my taste didn't really go in line with what was going on in the city. You know what I mean? What was already cool at the time. People listening to rap was becoming a thing that was getting more popular, and I didn't understand that. But it was what it was, right? So then go a little bit further in, and I found about this artist named Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath, the band that he started with. And let me tell you something. I think that pretty much changed my perspective on music from there on out. I still love the oldies, but I found the deep, gritty depths of metal and rock and roll, and I just started really digging into that. I I had the wrestling career. You all know I started out as a backyard wrestler. If you don't know, watch some of my other content, you find out about that story. But I started finding out about, people being interested in music as well, and we played around with the idea of, playing music when we're doing backyard wrestling. And let me tell you what I'm talking about. I mean, when I talk about the fact that I was into music early on, I mean, I'm talking early on. you know, whether any instrument I could pick up and play around with, I enjoy playing around with, and I got totally into. So I get into junior high, and that's only growing the intense interest in music. I played around with some acoustic guitars and stuff at my mother's house, learning, of course, songs like "Smoke on the Water." You know, it's one of those early ones that you learn, right? So I got into all that, and then I got to the fun of doing the talent show in high school. I don't want to say this was like 10th grade. No, actually, this one was 2000. This was actually 11th grade, second shot at it. On stage, Central Falls High School, doing some rock and roll coverage, and it got some respect, in a school that wasn't really the trendy thing. So then, what came next? Well, it was obvious. I had one of my wrestlers had an electric guitar, and we said, well, let's play some stuff and let's start creating some stuff. So we did, and we started putting together a band. And a lot of you know, thank you for saying that I look awesome. I appreciate that very much. You tell me a fun fact about rock music so I can tell my friends. A fun fact about rock music. Well, I mean, one fun fact is the fact that everybody thinks it's just a white man's thing, right? It's got such a label on it that this is a white man's party, and it's really not. If you really look at it, so much of the influence of where rock actually originated from comes from, the African American type stuff and Native American stuff. Drummers of Native American ancestry has so much influence on rock music, and one of my favorites, if you really want to know, one of my favorites was when Ozzy's had some of the best musicians play with him. Hello, yes, I hear you back there, amplifier. I'll come back to you in a minute. One of my favorite drummers drummed for Ozzy, and he's passed away long since, but he was Native American ancestry, and he played phenomenal drums. And I'm not sure why that thing's beeping and buzzing so much. I think maybe it needs to be plugged in, so I might have to fix that in a moment. So, the technical things and the difficulties and whatnot. Let me just put this down for a second. Now, let me keep talking to you, though. So, the deal is this. We're in high school, and one of my wrestlers has the idea of, well, let's play music, and I'm like totally for that, obviously. He's got a guitar. I get to play around with it, so why not, right? I'm just going to plug this in. All bear with me for a second. I should have had it plugged in from the get-go, but I thought maybe the battery would last. That's still plugged. We're good. Moving on. Right? That's exactly what it sounded like. You got mail notifications and stuff. So we decided to put the band together, and I know a lot of you think you know where this is going next, but there was a band before the band that you may have heard me talk about. So what we put together was this punk group type thing called Inbound Ugly, and we had the idea for like a cover of a picture of like this truck and the highway ramp saying, Inbound Ugly on it, and then the ugly on the truck license plate and all that. And unfortunately it didn't go anywhere, but it was the start. But quickly we decided we didn't like the name of that band, and aside from writing a song called We Suck, which was supposed to It was satirical and was supposed to be like, you know, really sounding awful and then starting to get better and get better. I do need a tech man. I definitely do need a tech man. Thank you. I've been saying that my videos would be great if I had somebody like on iCarly when you had the dude in the background helping out. Frankie? Is his name Frankie? I think his name's Frankie. I could be wrong. So aside from that little very brief, like 2 weeks of doing that, we decided we were going to go ahead and change the name of the band. And we threw a bunch of ideas out there, and my wrestler with the guitar became my bassist. Another wrestler became guitarist, and they wrestled as a tag team called Damage Inc. and feuded with me viciously in the wrestling business, and with nothing but a thorn in my side. But in the music, we had tons of fun, and we were playing in my basement a lot at the time, and we decided to call the band Broken Rose. Well, while all this is going on, we decided, well, let's see what else we could do. So we started actually writing, because I didn't ever like the idea of playing covers. Covers was never going to be my thing. It just wasn't going to happen that way. So we started writing some songs, and I'll get into that in a second with you. But I want to talk about what also was going on at that time. So we went to that live performance. That live performance in 2002 was supposed to end the night with my band on stage, and some nonsense kept that from happening, and it was ended up being one of my last days at school before I dropped out. It's a long story. It'll be in my autobiography. Check that out. But this happened. Broken Rose. You may know about Broken Rose Entertainment. Well, where did Broken Rose Entertainment form from? It formed from a band called Broken Rose. Why an IN instead of EN for the word broken? Because the person who drew our initial logo screwed up. Yep, they misspelled it. And I said, I like it. Let's go with that. So a couple months, after this, I've now moved out of Central Falls, and we're at this point. Those members of the band have dissipated, and I now had Raven playing on guitar for a few things. I also had Hellspawn playing on guitar for a little bit, messing around and writing more stuff. But before we got there, something historically happened that everybody knows about, and that was 9/11. Right? 9/11 happened during my final year in high school. And at the time, we were writing music and we were thinking about things. And as it started to come out who was behind it, Bin Laden, we decided to write a song about it, dedicated directly to Bin Laden. I haven't played this in a long time. It doesn't have much to it. But I'm going to play you a little piece of a song called Hey Bin Laden. Let me adjust. Hey, Bin Laden, what you gonna do? Hey, Bin Laden, we're gonna do. Hey, Bin Laden, the time is coming back. Hey, Bin Laden, we're gonna kick your ass. You may have Crashed our brains and made our buildings tumble. Now your plans will crumble. You made a mess with the rest, but now you after the best. With it all American dream, you just as anything. You're not thinking me, but what do I care? Take your ass just about anywhere. So there was that. And I mean, there's more to the song than that, but that's a chunk of it there for you. So yeah, there was that. And we wrote a song called, and I'll talk about this song a little bit more in a moment, but we wrote a song called Be My Witch. And I recorded something recently with a little bit of that. And you can probably check it out. And it's funny because Be My Witch, and it was wrote in my basement before I moved out of my parents' house. And it's the only song that was played with every single variation of Broken Rose, and also recorded solo with a digital music background, which I'll talk about my digital creations in a little bit. So we're 16 minutes in, but hey, we're cruising along, right? Moving right along. And I want to thank everybody who's participating. Oh, the mic didn't pick up the music from the first song. Oh, that's horrible. That is awful. So I hope that you're still hearing me okay at this point. And I want to thank everybody who is commenting and joining along. It seems like the chat's pretty active tonight. So if you haven't joined in on the chat already and you are watching it, feel free to join in. I will keep trying to check this stuff out as much as I can and give comments as we go along. So, just saying. So I wrote Be My Witch, and Vandal and Hawk gave a little bit of input along the way, but for the most part, I mean, they filled out like 2 or 3 lines of the song. But for the most part, I wrote the main hook and the main verses, and the final verse is all me because it was written years later. So that song was played with the initial version of Broken Rose, which was me, Vandal, and Hawk. And it was played with me and Hellspawn, who's passed away also now. It was also played with me and Raven. And then we got to the biggest form of the band eventually. But so here's in again, this is 2003. I mean, within months, I went from that here to this here. I don't know how it grew so fast back then. It really did, though. That was probably doing the song Shooting Star for that recording, I believe. And I'm not a huge Guns N' Roses fan, but I can't help but see this picture and kind of feel like it's got a little bit of a Guns N' Roses early vibe to it. And I had some good height when I jumped for that picture, just for the record. Some real good height on that picture. That's also in 2003. So then there's some inactivity for a while. And I start looking around Craigslist, deciding I want to try and do music. I really want to get into music. So I did. I just put out an ad looking for musicians to play with. And I also started looking at other people's things. So I went ahead and I answered an ad of somebody who was looking to put a band together. He was a guitarist. And this is film. This picture's in his basement. We did some video recording, and I wish I still had it. So you got me there. I played guitar, rhythm guitar, on a song called "New Hell on Earth." And let me tell you something. I've never been good. I have never been good at playing and singing at the same time. I'll admit it. I can't do it. I suck at it. He had a guitar solo in that song, and during the guitar solo, I would play a rhythm, which he taught me. And let me tell you something, it was so incredibly difficult to learn that piece. He had my fingers, and I don't remember it anymore, but I know we were down here somewhere, stretching from like here to over here and then back over to here again. And to remember that piece, I'm just not good with memory stuff, and I never was. But I had fun playing with Big Al the Crusher, and I filled in on bass while singing, and that was difficult. But at least bass was a little, was a little bit more just chunking along, just a little bit of. Type of stuff. So that was all right. And then I had to fill in on drums. He had a nice drum set, by the way, I will say that. But I filled in on the drums. We did that whole thing. And we got a drummer who auditioned to be a guitarist or a keyboard player. And she, during one of our breaks, because she couldn't keep up with anything, she ends up sitting at the drum set, and it ended up sounding great. I don't have any pictures of somebody who, I'm not sure if they're in the chat right now, but I know they were checking us out and talking earlier. Not sure if he's here. I think he's still here. Take a look and see if I can spot. I don't know if William's here. I know he was checking it out. I thought, well, maybe not. He had tried out, and he was at the cookout with us this last year, and he had tried out, but he didn't stick with us for whatever reasons that didn't work, and I don't really remember. But Vandalex came back to play. Vandal could be, and I love that bass. I played it a bunch of times. Vandal could be a really good bassist. He really could. If he could just keep his shit together. The problem is, we'd write a piece, especially a solo piece for him on the bass, and every time we play it, it sounded different. It still sounded good, but it sounded different. And I'm going, what the hell are you doing, Vandal? And this was the lead guitarist that we had. This was his basement. He's since moved to Texas, and that was the thing that broke the camel's back with. And this was in 2005 that these things were going on. So you had me, Vandalex, and Big Al the Crusher there. I'm in the center. Al's to the left. And Vandalex, for some reason, had leopard print on in that picture. Here is the girl that was temporarily a drummer. She was good until she started playing nothing but cymbals. And I'm like, I want some deep thundering drums. And she's hitting cymbals, and I'm yelling at her. And then, then we had this whole thing where she was not showing up to practice a bunch, and we came up with a song called Finding the Beast, and I was filling in on the drums at that point, and I'm playing the drums, and I created the drum rhythm for that song, and I played it so fast and so hard, and when she came back and I tried to teach her the piece, she said, nobody can do this for an entire song. Nobody can drum this fast, this hard. And all that. And I'm like, you can. You absolutely can. And so I set up the microphone over here, and I got the drum set in front of me, and I'm playing it and singing it at the same time. And that was probably the last time she played with us. It was fun. So we've only got a few minutes left, and I've talked about the journey up until that point. Well, in 2004, 2005, during the time of Broken Rose splitting up, I decided to start playing around with some solo stuff. I wrote some more music, and I started recording some digitally created tracks where I created the music with some computer programs, which I was never a huge fan of, but I played around with it a little bit, and I dropped my vocals on top of it. And that's where we got the song Space Junkie, which I then brought back to Broken Rose when we came back together briefly. And it was, it was kind of a little repetitive piece with the space junkie, got your heading out of space. But I had fun, and I had fun creating some digital like video things to go along with that, and Dirty Woman, and a couple other songs that we created at the time. Then we did the actual songs, New Hell on Earth, Anti-Hero, Anti-Hero, no more playing the zero, I'll be your anti-hero. Anti-Hero was fun. I think New Hell on Earth was the one that started with a chugging along. Yeah, because I would play that intro piece, then my guitarist would take off with his piece, and then I would come back when he would go into his solo, and that would be that. But I would play that pretty much through the whole song. That's something I could at least handle. So we did all that, and then I created some more songs, and then so we've broken up, and then my guitarist is in Texas, and he writes me, and I had the DWO thing growing, and he's talks about helping me create a theme song for DWO, and we did. And he sent me it was the only time that we ever did this, but he sent me the guitar piece, and I dropped my vocals on it. Then he got a drummer down there to drop some drum beats on it, and we put it all together, and it sounded really great. And people talked about it for years about how much they enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it. And so not much of my recordings has lasted. 2007, 2008, I wrote a song called The Tormentor, which is turning into a book. And there was 2 songs that were combined there that was supposed to be a piece of a little album that I was creating solo-wise called The Tormentor, and then the other one was called Serial Killer. And it was kind of interesting and fun, but there's going to be a whole book series about that. I've already written book 1. I can't wait to get that published. We want to turn it into a film as well. That'll be fun. So here's the deal. I talked last week about my wrestling career, and I talked about how there's no intention of me going back into the wrestling ring at this point in time. What we didn't talk about is the music, and people have asked me, well, how, would you play again? Would you sing again? If you could put a band together, or you could do some solo projects, would you do it? And I've been talking to a couple musicians and people who have recording stuff, and I absolutely want to do music and singing. I don't think I've got the greatest voice. I had fun in chorus. Did I mention that I did chorus in high school? I loved that. And I mean, I didn't feel like it was my exact fitting place, but I had fun. I did the national anthem with my chorus class at the Paw Sox game at McCoy Stadium. Just, you know. Anyways, so we're wrapping up here, and I just want to say that absolutely I will do music again. Somehow, some way, I still want to put some of my music and taste into the planet and let it be something. And if one person enjoys it, just one person, that'll be enough for me. And that's what I've always said about everything that I do. So yes, I'm going to write some stuff. I've been writing some lyrics, and I absolutely want to put it to music. So if you're into music, if you play music, let's start talking and think about what we can do, because let's create together and put something out there. I want to do something. I would love to put together another form of Broken Rose and actually get to play out this time, because that was the one thing. We had it set up. We had 2 different gigs that almost happened, and for scheduling reasons didn't end up happening, unfortunately. And I want to do it. I want to do it so bad, and I hope that someday I get to play out with a band, with Broken Rose. It may not be the original members of Broken Rose, but somebody, somewhere, come on, get together with me. Let's get a bassist, let's get a guitarist, and let's get a drummer, and let's do something. All right? Let's do something under the Broken Rose name. And I also want to do a solo project. I've got some songs that I want to put out that are more on the solo side. They're not quite the hard rock, heavy metal. the Broken Roses, and I got movie projects coming. It's 8 o'clock. I want to thank you all for joining me. I want to thank everyone who's in the comments right now still involved. I thank you so much. This is going to be the end for now. We'll see you again next week. I forget what we're talking about next week. I'll post on my page, and we'll see you then. I love you all from the bottom of my heart. God bless. Take care. And rock on! Alrighty then. I guess, let's see. Should we go out with a bang? Thank you. Yeah, let's say thank you as we head out. Thank you all so very much.